Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Happy New Year. It's very nice to be here again and see everybody again. I'm sorry we're starting 1 minute late. Um, uh, but it's very good to see you all, and welcome to anybody who is joining us online. Are we officially online now? Yes, all up and running. So we're starting formally. First of all, I'm just going to say that we have an apology from Councillor Colling for lateness because his bus is running late, so he will be here shortly. I will now go back to my official notes, which say I would like to begin by welcoming all those members of the press and public who have joined us today in Huntingdon. I don't think we've got anybody in Huntingdon, but there may be some people watching our meeting on live stream. The combined authority allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and tweet during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate while the meeting is taking place? There are no fire drills scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will all move to the muster point, which is in the High Street. I would like to remind members and officers that this meeting will be recorded. So it is very nice to see you all again. The other thing that's not on there is a big welcome to Natalie Warren Green, who is joining us as the new representative from South Cambridgeshire District Council. So it's great to have you with us, Natalie. Good. Oh, it is on my list. Tick. Good. We will move on now to agenda item 1, which is governance items. We've done welcoming Natalie, and we will now move on to declare to any declarations of interests or non-statutory disclosable interests. Oh, do we have any declarations of interest? I don't see any, but if anything comes up later in the meeting, please feel free to declare your interest then. The next item is the approval of the minutes and the action log. We are being asked to confirm these as an accurate record. Does any member wish to raise any questions on the accuracy of the minutes? Welcome, Sam. Your bus was not quite as late as you suggested, so that's great. Any thoughts on the accuracy of the minutes? I don't see any comments on the accuracy of the minutes, so I will sign those as a correct record in a moment, and we will move to the action log. So, Fliss, would you like to take us through the action log?
I will do. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So just a quick canter through the actions that are still open. So 66A, we've deliberately decided to take a pause in sending that letter, but that letter has been drafted and we will send that soon. And that was all about the timing and short-term nature of DFE contracts. Then for the action 79A, 81A and 81B, all of those are currently in progress, and as soon as we have a full picture for you, that information will be circulated to you. In terms of action 91 in relation to the Careers Hub, that information is ready to be sent and will be sent to you following this meeting. The first meeting of the Careers Steering Group will be on the 6th of March. There's terms of reference and full membership available, so that will be sent to you, and all other actions are complete.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any comments, Lynn?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to raise the growth works matter that you've just mentioned, because I continue to be concerned about it, even with the information you sent us on the inward investment, etc. Because I'm looking through for Peterborough, of course, as you know, and I made a note that something had happened in 2021 in March, September, and December, which fine, but then nothing again until November 22. Now, I don't know why that there was no, it may have been that nobody applied. It may have been that nobody knew they could apply. It may have been all sorts of reasons, but I'd like to know why, because I didn't think that was very impressive, because people, generally speaking, when it's investment they're going to get, they like the idea of money nowadays, and I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more going on. So could I ask for that, please? In the future, I don't need it immediately, of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so that one will be noted, and Fliss will get back to Lynn on that. Any further comments on the action log? Okay, thank you very much. We will then move on to part 2, the recommendations from the Combined Authority Board. The first of these is the University of Peterborough Phase 3 Living Lab full business case, which I think is going to be introduced by Rachel, who I'm hoping is online. She's with us. Wonderful. Thank you, Rachel.
Is that working? Yes, perfect. Thank you, Chair. So the report today provides an update on the outline business case that was presented and approved by the Skills Committee and the Combined Authority Board in January 2022, so this time last year. The main changes to the, so moving it from an outline business case to a full business case, are as follows. So there are updates to reflect the proposed location of the second teaching building for the university of the regional pool car park, which is adjacent to the existing first teaching building, the University House. There are also updates to cover the strategic objectives of the purpose of the Living Lab. So the university, the second university teaching building is to also encompass a Living Lab facility, which will be open to the wider community, involving STEM-related teaching activities. There's also an update on the wider national economic impacts and the adjusted economic model to factor in the uncertainties around forecasting student numbers. We've also applied some further sensitivity testing around this. So if you recall, back in November, we talked about student numbers and the fact that the university obviously has just opened. The business cases that have been submitted and approved so far have been based around a certain number of students or a projected number of students, and that's now been readjusted to reflect a more realistic picture based on the information that we currently have available to us at the moment, but also, most importantly, some sensitivity testing. So we've assumed a kind of a 50% reduction and a 50% increase either side to make sure that we are factoring in any potential economic factors that might result in increases, hopefully increase the number of applications, also potential decrease as well. We've also included or extended the period of analysis and the benefits to 15 years, whereas previously the original outline business case was only projected to be 5. We've extended that to 15 because that's a more realistic, reasonable timescale given the intention of the university and also the linked living lab. So the outcome of the key changes and the updates are that the benefit cost ratio still remains high, and that and furthermore the commercial and financial assessment also demonstrates that the second teaching building alongside the existing teaching building remains affordable and deliverable. Since our last update to the committee in November 2020, we've also done some further work around the assessment of progress measures against the university. If you recall, we discussed this and I raised this as part of the update following the opening of the university. These measures have now been tied into the broader strategic objectives for the delivery of the university and the Combined Authority region. And it's something that all the partners, Anglo Ruskin University, the Combined Authority and Peterborough City Council have come to an agreement on. And these measures are included in Section 5 of the FBC. So that is something that is new since the original outline business case last year. Further work is required to identify an appropriate approach to the ongoing review and governance of those monitoring arrangements. More recently, discussions that we've been having with the partners is that will be done through the university's governing board, reporting and providing progress updates to the Combined Authority and Peterborough City Council through their representative committees. So we hope to align those meeting dates in due course, and we'll be updating the Skills Committee against those progress measures. Alongside this, we've also started to look at a programme review approach of the university, because we feel it's necessary to determine what can be done to identify future investment through the university partners and any other public funding authorities, potential private investors, and also companies as well. So this piece of strategic work is due to be presented to the Skills Committee, hopefully in the summer of this year, and we'll bring together combined authorities, business and skills strategies that can be achieved through the collaboration of the university partners and the shareholders that are currently in place at the moment. I just also wanted to finish off before asking for any questions, just to confirm that the planning application for the phase 3 building on the regional pool car park was also approved in December. So that's good news. So, which comes back to the point about the fact that the programme in relation to the phase 3 building and living lab, teaching building and living lab, still remains deliverable and is on target. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rachel. Any questions or comments from the committee? Lynn?
Yes, I feel I need to say something because it's so important, not just for Peterborough, of course, Peterborough City and our local authority, but for the whole region. I mean, particularly Fenland and North Huntingdonshire, etc., in the north area of Cambridgeshire is so important. This university does well, so we are very pleased with and thank you very much for the combined authority for the help that is coming over from you and looking into all these various matters, and all of them I know have been dealt with and considered and are agreed, and particularly the progress measures, etc. That's terribly important for the future because, of course, there's a changing country now. There's with lots of problems going on, and of course that may hit the university. We're very conscious of that. We hope it won't, but we know that from your report and this full business case, you've got that very much in mind. And so, yes, as I say, thank you for all the assistance. When it comes to the numbers, when we first heard about the numbers going into the university in September, we were very pleased in Peterborough because the 1,600 applications seemed very high, and I know that they were very pleased actually at the university itself. And they didn't, not all of them went into the university, of course, but they had all these applications, and now they've got some international applications as well. So it has been looking good, and we've been very delighted with it, but we need to be very cautious about it, and we do understand that in Peterborough, very much so. So that I really wanted to make comments rather than anything else. But also just to say, I thought this when it comes to the living lab, mentioning that in particular, I like the figure 14 on page 65 about the school, the idea of example of activity to be supported by the living lab. I thought the one for the school competition events, because I do education in Peterborough as well, I thought that was really good. I like the look of that very much so. So I you put a lot of thought into all areas of where we can progress, and that's exactly what we want. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sam from Huntingdon.
Thanks very much. It's a really helpful paper, and obviously this is extremely welcome. I mean, I'm conscious that predicting even 5 years out, accounting for the current economic climate in a business case has aspects of bravery to it. Quite what the civil service euphemism is for seeking to predict 15 years ahead in these circumstances, I don't know. But with obvious health warnings, as I say, this is around the details. The information we have is encouraging already, as has been flagged. So I'll be very happy to support this, and thank you for all the work on it.
Thank you. Sam from Cambridge.
Thank you. Yeah, this is really, really positive. I think especially the STEM facilities look phenomenal in it. So thank you so much for all the work that's going on with this. I had a couple of specific questions. On page 26, in the economic section of the table, under where it says updated the economic appraisal and BCR to account for the following, it refers to a salary uplift for undergraduates and postgraduates. I'm just wondering if you could briefly let me know what that's referring to there, because some postgraduate students obviously are salaried, but several aren't. Master's students often aren't, and undergraduates aren't.
Yeah, that is it's a factor that it's the salary uplift is taken into consideration in the economic model, and there are again with most with much of the economic model there are obviously assumptions in there of which we've had to make. There was a conversation with the university as to kind of a realistic basis of what that salary uplift should be, and I think in fact, based on the original outline business case, we reduced it because we were cautious of the economic climate, and the fact that the possibility that undergraduates coming out of university might not be going straight into employment. I'm probably not doing that explanation sort of justice. I know that online we've got a colleague, Nathan from Metro Dynamics, who can perhaps explain in a little bit more detail around the economic model. I don't know if Nathan's there. I can't see him on the screen, but I'm assuming that he is.
Thank you.
Hi,
Just before
Rachel.
Nathan comes in, can I just, Sam, do you want to ask us a question on a similar thing, and then we can try and get them both answered at the same time?
If it assists, was it just a suggestion that I'm being overly simplistic? Is the point of clarification that this refers to projected salary uplifts post graduation, not salary for current students, which I think was implicit in the question, rather than a question about the detailed modelling. As helpful
We'll go
as
to
interesting
Nathan
as that
and he
would
can
be.
help, but I think some detail on the modelling would also be great.
So specifically on that second question, that's right. It's about the increase in a student or learner salary post graduation, and we're sort of taken into account benchmarks from what you would expect to see from somebody going from not having a degree qualification to an undergraduate degree qualification, for example, and the expected salary uplift you would see for that person over a 10-year period. Also looking at the slightly different numbers that would apply to someone who is going from an undergraduate to a postgraduate level of qualification. Also somebody who is sort of doing a short course where you would expect the salary uplift to be significantly smaller, but it's sort of still taken into account in that in general. So we've tried to be as conservative as possible, I think, in many of our assumptions around how that works. We've used sort of HESA or university benchmarks to help us understand what we should expect as an increase in salary for students doing sort of across the blend of courses that'll be available through phase 3 of the university, and then also taking into account some of the sort of regional statistics as well to make sure that we can be as accurate as possible, but also to reflect a strong degree of caution in that economic modelling. We're saying also, and I think there'll be further detail of this included in the economic case section of the full business case. We've tried to account for things like dead weight loss, people that would have studied at university anyway, but have chosen Peterborough, leakage, so people that graduate from their degree and move either to a different part of the country or out of the UK entirely, where you therefore see those benefits not accrue to Peterborough, and a few other things like that as well, to make sure that we have a conservative set of assumptions around the economic case to make sure that even if things don't go as well as they look like they may well do based on the evidence of phase 1, that the project can still return a positive sort of value for money, which we definitely found in this case. If there are specific questions on the modelling or any part of that, it might be useful to deal with them at a more detailed level.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I think that's helpful. And I'm seeing nods from my colleagues, so I think you've answered the question. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Liz?
Thank you very much indeed, and also welcome the report from East Cambridgeshire as well. I'm sure you're aware that East Cambs and Fenland, or maybe you're not, all the schools work together on their careers programmes, which is really good, working obviously with the Careers Hub. I would just wanted to question, obviously we are looking at marketing for the next year. I haven't seen, I don't think, really overt marketing to our schools. Obviously, in East Cambs, most of our youngsters leave at 16, which may be addressed with our cold spots feasibility study. But nevertheless, I think the understanding that the Peterborough University is there needs to be more overt for our youngsters. And I was just wondering whether, as part of the marketing campaign over the next 12 months, we could have some information about how that might take place.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, and an interesting point, something we'll look into and raise with ARU Peterborough if it's not being filtered through into the right local areas, then and marketed to the right local areas, then we can pick that up, have a look at it.
Am I on? Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's quite right what was said earlier that obviously we're looking. Hopefully, that there'll be applicants from the northern parts of the area, and as you know, we do have public transport issues, and I wonder what thought has been given to that problem as actually getting in from the outlying areas into the university.
The university itself, ARU Peterborough, have done a lot of work, and I'm speaking on behalf of them at the moment. I'm sure they'll be able to articulate it much better than I, but they have done a lot of work with local transport companies to try and identify improved ways of the sort of outlying reach areas within the local area and across Cambridgeshire. And you know, as would be expected, they come up against the same issues that we're all aware of. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's very important to put together or start to develop a programme business case for the university to try and bring not just the actual infrastructure, but all of the other aspects, all the other benefits of having a university in Peterborough together as well. So accepting that within the combined authority, we also need to be more coordinated with our transport colleagues and trying to identify more improved ways of transport or improving transport to the university. I mean, alongside that, one of the sort of big pieces of work that will come together as part of the program business case is also an outline planning application, which obviously will require the need to have to coordinate the sort of infrastructure proposals with the wider transport policies within Peterborough itself. And my intention, as I say, is to try and coordinate that work with our combined authority transport colleagues as well, so it can help improve and steer policy, in favour of improving transport for students to be able to get to and fro from the university. If it's helpful, what I can do is I can ask ARU Peterborough to provide a summary of the work that they've done to date and that is currently ongoing, and then hopefully in the summer you'll have a much better idea of what those sort of coordinated strategies will look like as part of an overall programme business case.
Yeah, can I just add on to what Rachel's saying? So we are working very closely with transport colleagues already, not just looking at ARUP, but the wider network of transport, not only to reach education establishments, but also job centre pluses. And so therefore, as part of the work that's going on for the wider local connectivity and transport plan and the new bus strategy, we're working very closely to make sure that all the skills requirements feed into that as well. So across the whole of the combined authority area.
Thank you. But I think if you could let us know what ARU are doing, that would be really helpful. So that could just come out as a post-meeting briefing to members. Sam.
Thanks. If I could just ask further to that, if I'm understanding correctly, that assumptions or intended to be realistic assumptions have been made about the ability of students to access the site, including around public transport in the business case. Does that mean it would be reasonable to expect that if buses and public transport improvements beyond those envisaged were delivered over the coming few years, that we would expect better than predicted business performance, as it were, that all else being equal, improved public transport would improve the business case beyond what's presented to us? Or is that too simplistic an answer to seek, given the factors that play into this?
I don't think it's simplistic. I think it's sensible. I think the reality is, though, in terms of the economic model that we presented today within the full business case, doesn't really take into consideration improvements in transport, because I'm not quite sure how you would quantify them. I'm looking to Nathan. I don't know if there is anything that we could have or should be looking into as far as sort of improvements within transport infrastructure, but it's not something that we've included. It's perhaps something we can think about.
To add in really quickly, Rachel, yes, that's right. Those sort of additional transport improvements were beyond the scope of the phase 3 full business case. But to go back to the earlier question, all else being equal, yes, we would expect to see an improvement in public transport to increase potential accessibility to the university from students in the wider area. And that would therefore sort of support the business case, but it's not something that we've modelled as part of this.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further hands, and I haven't heard anybody say anything other than positive things about this business case. So I think we will move to the recommendations and the vote. Just for clarity, I'm going to read out the recommendations because there are a few of them. So the first is to approve the University of Peterborough Phase 3 Living Lab full business case. And the second is to note the following steps of the development of a university programme business case. A, in consultation with university partners and shareholders, to review the governance arrangements with a view to developing a programme-related governance structure. B, the preparation of the campus outline planning application for the potential future ambition. And C, to progress and to further progress an update against progress measures. I think that sentence isn't ideal. To agree with partners, including the outline for the University of Peterborough programme business case. But I think we can take all of those. Thank you, Tamar. So if I could have a proposer and a seconder for those recommendations, please. I'll take Lynn as the proposer and Sam from Huntingdon was the seconder. So all those in favour, if you could please indicate now, that'd be great. All those in favour of the recommendations? Can I just see? Sorry, I don't always ask, but I have this time. That's, I think, unanimous. Are you happy that that's unanimous? Any abstentions or against? None. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you, Rachel, and good luck with the next stages. And I am still hoping that as a skills committee, we can come and visit you quite soon, because I think it would be really helpful for us to get a kind of wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's great. Wonderful. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Wave 4 Skills Boot Camps, which I think is being introduced by Melissa Creswell, Senior Programme Manager. Is Melissa online? She is. So welcome, Melissa.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. So Wave 4 Skills Boot Camps, at the time of writing this paper, the Combined Authority had submitted a grant funding proposal to Department for Education, and that was to deliver on Wave 4 Skills Boot Camps, which would have a delivery period between April 2023 to March 2024. And at the time, we were awaiting the outcome of the proposal. So I am pleased to say that we have now received an update from DFE on that proposal, and we have been successful with the full amount proposed, which was £2,878,150. And so essentially the purpose of this paper is for the Skills Committee to recommend to the CA Board the approval of the funds, to create a new budget line, and also to delegate authority to the Interim Associate Director of Skills to be able to enter, sign and award grant agreements or any other suitable procurement exercise and contracting. So as like previous waves, the Skills Boot Camps will provide Cambridgeshire and Peterborough residents with lifelong learning and training opportunities. They are there to upskill or reskill through short or flexible courses, and to match sort of in line with local employer skills needs, local job vacancy demands, and support business growth. so in line with employment and skills strategy. You may notice that we have bid for a lesser amount on wave 4 in comparison to previous waves, and that is due to a slower than anticipated take-up from providers and employers, and so the view is there to sort of overperform on wave 4. The funding for wave 4, again similar to the previous wave 3, can be used in a range of sectors, so digital, construction, technical, logistics, pathways to apprenticeships, but also within an other category. We have got on wave 4, if all goes ahead, the use to use up to 30% of our funding on the other category. So if based on analysis and employer feedback, an employer needs analysis, if there is that need to develop a skills bootcamp course that doesn't necessarily feel sort of fit into the 7 identified sectors by Department for Education, we can develop and commission other courses that are suitable for our local area. And that is a greater flexibility than previous waves, where it was only 10% of our funding we could use. We can now use up to 30% of that. And I wanted to note that we have engaged with GrowthWorks in the new year, GrowthWorks with Skills in the new year already, just to look at some of that employer needs analysis and employer feedback to help inform the type of provision that we do procure. We are analysing MD job vacancy data, and we have been working much more closely with Job Centre Plus on referrals for this type of provision as well. We again, all being well and it all goes ahead from approvals, we are working with procurement and legal colleagues within the combined authority to look at where we might wish to extend existing contracts with current providers based on, again, job vacancy and employer need, and also on existing contract performance, but then also to look at developing the further procurement activity to attract new providers and provision for delivery to start in April 2023. So I think that's all I wanted to say, and I invite any questions.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Sorry, Liz is first. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a couple of things, which it might be you who answer them, or it could be Liz. I just want to refer back to the take-up that we had in the past, and you've already suggested that we put in a lower bid because the take-up wasn't as we might have expected in the first 3 waves. I'm just wondering what makes us think that we're going to be more successful going forward than we have in the past, because this could require new courses, but it could also require new applicants to the existing courses. And are we able to understand what the uptake is from businesses, particularly the SMEs in the area, for these boot camps, or are most clients coming from individuals? So the uptake question is, there has been a concern, obviously, in the past, and I'm absolutely totally behind this. Congratulations on getting the bid, so that's great. But that is a concern right across the board on all school skills courses attendance. And the other one was, Liz, are you happy that we now have the right providers in place? We've had some interesting discussions in the past about those who can provide and who can't. So are you secure in your recommendations that you will be able to do C when we delegate the authority to you to actually get these providers on board?
I will start. I'm not able to give you the detail on SMEs versus individuals, so I'll ask Liz to do that for you. So it's fair to say that we're still having challenges with skills boot camps, and you'll see that from the exempt appendix for a subsequent paper. But there are a number of things that we're doing to try and mitigate the issues. So you'll see subsequent paper, we're looking at bringing in a dynamic purchasing system to give us more agility and flexible approach to contracting. We're also launching a new provider network, so that will meet for the first time in January. We're changing how the skills team operates. So rather than having different contract managers for different funding streams, every provider will have one contract manager, and so therefore we'll have wider discussions about all of the provision. So we're doing lots and lots of things to try and engage in a different way. That being said, because the contracts by DfE are on a 12-month basis, we still have very, very limited uptake from our college network. That's not out of kilter with the rest of the country. However, there are some colleges who have and universities actually who have across the country who have adopted this model, but we are struggling. And where colleges have taken it on, they are struggling to make it work for them. And to date, we haven't managed to get any of our local universities to sign up to this provision either. So am I content with where we are with providers? No. Are we trying to do everything we can do? Yes. And we continue. I met with the associate director or assistant director at DfE who leads on this programme nationally, outlining our concerns. So I think as a team, we're doing everything we can do. But am I confident we get the right providers? Not 100% confident, if I'm honest. But that's why we've gone for a lower level, to hope that we can therefore deliver on the smaller contract and then outperform rather than underperform is where I'd like to be.
Can I, just before Liz comes back in on the other point, can I just ask a very quick follow-up to Liz's question, which is, what is it that you think is preventing the providers from wanting to get involved in this? Is it that they don't think that the learners are there, or is it that the short-term nature of the contract awards makes it feel to them as if it's not worth the investment because they're not confident about there being a long-term view on this?
I think it's still relatively new provision. Colleges are very under-resourced, and so budget is tight. So therefore, the scope for innovation is reduced. But I do think the short-term nature and shortage of tutors is a number of different challenges that I think that we face. And unfortunately for us, the two local colleges who have signed up to deliver are struggling to perform, and so therefore that doesn't send good messages around the system either.
So they're struggling to find the learners as well, or are they struggling
completions
to find
it's completions, and whilst I think we've got a good college network, this is a very, very different engagement with employers. Every participant has to have a job interview, and the majority have to secure employment at the end. So it's a very different relationship with employers. And so it is a different way of working too. So I think invest in this provision, but because of the different ways, it's challenging.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Liz, do you want to come back on the other point that was raised?
Thank you. So whilst I don't have the specific numbers, and we can look at that, overall, the uptake on enrolling onto courses is largely from individuals rather than through employers. But I think the boot camps in terms of the eligibility is quite flexible. It can be for those that are unemployed, those that are part-time employed and want to career change, or it could be for those employers that do wish to progress their existing staff. There's a whole range of eligibility within that, and we have got breakdowns of those employment statuses that we could look at. Then you've got the other side of employers, where as just mentioned, those that are enrolled on a boot camp who aren't looking to progress with their existing employer are expected to have an interview with a local employer. And so again, without having specific numbers, it's largely larger employers within the region that are providing vacancy interviews for vacancies. But again, we've I think this was mentioned by Fliss earlier, we are boosting marketing within the area. We are meeting very regularly with providers on what they're doing with their marketing and joining that up with what we want to do. So there's a lot of work happening with that, but in terms of actual uptake, it's largely individuals who are fully funded coming onto the programmes.
Thank you, Sam. Huntington, Sam.
Thanks. If we're done with questions on that topic, because I was going to move on to touch on the sector spend. So paragraph 2.7 in the paper specifically, I was just going to ask for a little clarity on, particularly in light of what was presented. So it says the proposal is to deliver skills boot camps in the sectors of digital, construction and green, and then there's reference to the 30% rule that allows going beyond the government specified areas. And as I read the paper, it sounded to me like the proposal was to use that 30% flexibility specifically on and only on also the sectors of care, project management and leadership and management, sort of put aside whether those are quite sectors or areas of skills. But did I understand in the verbal presentation that in fact the 30% flexibility not only could but also would be used potentially for sectors beyond those listed in this paragraph? I'm seeing nodding. It's helpful because I mean it's particularly relevant to us in Huntingdonshire because, for example, a major sector of our district economy is in manufacturing. Now, does that fit into a heading of green? Well, some of it does, some of it doesn't, some of it might, depending on what we mean by that, as a category. But I think you're in a position to give reassurance that given how we can use that 30% flexibility, those definitional questions about do we quite fit into the sector categories here or not needn't be a barrier to supporting work that goes potentially beyond those definitions. Is that basically right?
Yeah, you've interpreted that correctly. So yeah, I know what you mean with regards to sectors and skills. Some of them are sort of cross-cutting, and so, but yeah. So the ones that have been identified in the paper are types of boot camps where we've had discussions where there looks to be a demand and a need already, particularly leadership and management. But we are absolutely considering where else there might be that need or demand in the case of the other sector. So yeah.
That's really helpful. And does that answer also mean again that when we talk about sectors, we also mean sort of categories of skill provision? So leadership and management. It doesn't matter what sector the company per se might be in, or the skills might be supporting. If they're of a leadership and management nature, then we're able to support with the resource that we'd be approving today, assuming we do so.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to go into that as well, so I thank you for doing that, because the one that was worrying me there was care, because we've already got the academy on the go, and that's proved difficult, as you know, Fliss, to get. It's principally because the care providers, the care businesses, don't want people to be gone from the care homes, and they've got to spend money on it, and it's costing them, and now is the sort of wrong time, I suppose. It's one of the big problems I think we found on the academy. I think Liz might agree with that. It's proved very difficult, and so I was a bit worried that we were choosing care. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have them in there. I'm just simply saying that there's got to be other ones too. And on that score, I just wondered where I think I was right in thinking there's going to be has been an Ofsted report on these boot camps, or something's happening whereby we might get some more information about what is happening across the country, because obviously people, some places, I think you just said, are doing quite well, and my question is, why are they doing well? And did we ought to have more contact with them to find out what it is that they've got that we're not managing? maybe just a completely different part of the country, of course. But I just think we need, we need to sort of expand on the thoughts here. So if you could find that out for us, I should be grateful. Very pleased to see this flexibility, though, as is Councillor Wakeford.
I'm going between the two because one mic will let me speak and one won't let me speak the next time. So in terms of the Ofsted thematic review, that's a document that's been published. So Liz, if you could circulate that to everybody following the meeting, that'd be helpful. And then I have, when I spoke to the Deputy Director at DFE and also our regional rep, I have asked for where is performing well so that I can have a conversation with them. I haven't received that information back yet. We do know that some people are struggling more than what we are as well. So as soon as I have that intelligence, I will definitely follow up on it.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, and again, I haven't heard anybody speak against the recommendations. Right. Okay. I've just been told that Rena needs to come in because there are some slight changes to the recommendations. So, Rena, if you would like to tell us about those now, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to make a slight tweak to recommendation A. Obviously, at the time of publishing, this was the funding was unknown. So to change recommendation to reflect that the combined authority is being asked to accept the grant funding from the Department of Education in the sum of the £2.8 million as stated to deliver the Way for Skills boot camps for 2023-2024 financial year. And part B, just to again tweak the beginning of that sentence to just reflect that to also approve an addition of a corresponding budget for the delivery of the Way for Skills boot camps in the 2023-2024 budget. If we could make those changes. I have messaged Tamar with the exact wording. It's just to reflect the current position.
Thank you very much. I do quite understand that there's been a change in the situation since the papers were published, so that's perfectly reasonable. Are there any questions, or does anyone want to hear those changes to the recommendations read again? I think everybody is comfortable with that. So on this occasion, I think we will take them as a block. We do need a proposer and a seconder. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Sam, do you want to propose? That would be great.
I will, and can I say specifically on the basis if the clarity around the flexibility could be really clear in the minutes for reference for our teams looking at this, I think would be really helpful to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Cambridge City, Sam, are you happy to second? That sounds perfect. Then all those in favour, if you could indicate now, that'd be great. Lynn, are you? Yep. Yes. Any against? I think that's unanimous. So thank you very much indeed. We will move on to the next item, which is part 3, the delivery. This is, at least I hope I haven't missed one out. Is that correct? The Adult Education Budget Annual Report, and we will go to Parminder, who I can see on the screen.
Good morning, members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. That's great. Thank you.
That's great. So good morning, members, and Happy New Year. This first report from me sets out our reporting requirements and the submission of our annual return for the 21-22 academic year to the Department for Education for the devolved adult education budget. And these requirements are part of the Local Growth Assurance Framework, where combined authorities are required to provide a base level monitoring return to the DFE by the end of January for the previous academic year. And this return has been tabled at the Skills Committee during the January meetings each year, and this is our third return to date. And the return has been included as an Appendix A to the report, and approval is sought from the Skills Committee prior to submission. The return to the DFE aims to summarise our achievements for the 21-22 academic year and demonstrate the momentum that the combined authority and our partners continue to make to ensure devolved skills programmes deliver the maximum impact for our residents, businesses and communities. I trust that members will agree that overall, this report showcases a positive narrative, but of course with opportunities to make further improvements in the coming year. The headline is that we've continued to increase participation in adult learning with an 8% increase in enrolments and a 7% increase in learners, with over 10,000 learners, including continuing learners, benefiting from locally funded courses, plus a dramatic increase in level 3 courses to over 400 learners and an increase in ESOL. Our devolved funding policy changes, such as fully funding first level 2, first and second level 3, ESOL, and a wider package of support through additional funding for areas of deprivation, the care leavers, and the armed forces communities have helped us with this. There is, of course, much to do around increasing the take-up of improving essential skills, literacy, numeracy, essential digital skills, which have remained flat. And members will be aware that we are working on developing an essential skills route map to revitalise this particular work stream. At the request of members in previous years, we've also included an appendix with a breakdown of participation by our constituent local authorities, which is included for information. And finally, an external evaluation is in the process of being commissioned to demonstrate the impact of AEB following local control of the budget following devolution. And this work is due to report to Skills Committee in June. Happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you very much, Parminder. Liz.
Good morning, Parminder, and Happy New Year to you too. Thank you very much. It is a really positive report, and we are really pleased to see this. I just wanted to ask just a couple of questions regarding the recommendation C, which is about the impact evaluation of AEB, and on 2.5 on the following page about the 3-year evaluation. I'm particularly interested in the two sentences, one which says the request for members to participate is in recommendation C, and I'm particularly interested in knowing how you are going to measure impact of the delivery of wider outcomes of learning, etc., which is the last point of that. I just wanted to have that, and I know I should know this, and I do apologise, but I'm asked this constantly, and I'm never able to answer it really very well. But the definition of learners, particularly learners in the local authority, because obviously the percentages change depending on the size of the authority and so on. Particularly, the difference is that the percentage of learners in the local authority for adult skills, is that the same as community learning, or is it a different group of learners? Percentages don't really mean anything unless you know what the whole thing looks like. That's just a question. I should know what the definition is of your learners, and I don't appear to.
Are you happy to answer that, Parminder? It's a good question.
So in terms of, so thank you for those questions, Councillor Every. So the first question was about the impact evaluation of AEB, and just to say that in previous years, we'd commissioned Cambridgeshire Insights to do a process evaluation, and those have been shared with the committee. What we wanted to do for the end of this year was to look at outcomes and impact over a 3-year period, and to commission an external organisation to do that for us. So I'm just in the process of finalising the specification for that, and we're looking to initiate an external evaluation consultancy to do that piece of work for us. In terms of wider outcomes of learning, so we do have a document which sets this out, and it's things like obviously qualification, achievement, but also in terms of confidence building of learners, employment outcomes, destinations, improvements to health and well-being, community engagement, those kinds of things. I'm happy to share that document with members, which just lists out those kinds of wider outcomes of learning that we are looking for. And then the second question was about the definition of learners, and I'm not sure I understood the question, because in terms of the report, because I think that I'm making an assumption that because in the documents we talk about continuing learners and we talk about learners who actually enrolled in the year, that's the distinction. And then the other bit is in terms of the two funding streams that we have. So we have adult skills funding and we have community learning funding, and we just count the learners separately because the funding has a different measurement. So I'm assuming that's what the question is about.
Yes, I'm sorry if I confused you because I'm a bit confused myself. It was a question of, particularly East Cambs, which is the smallest authority. Obviously, when you look at the numbers of learners by learner residents, our percentage is quite high because in terms of numbers and our percentage, but I don't know what the whole looks like. So I don't know what the potential of learners there are in the area in order that would be that are within this remit, because actually you could take any learner, anybody over the age of 18 is a potential learner, either in their community or for continuous learning. So I'm just wondering how you focus down on getting that percentage.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the local appendix. All that is, it's just that's not about how many learners there are in a district or an area. It's just the learners who participated in AB, either community learning or adult skills. That's all it's saying, and the percentage is the percentage of the learners from that district within the AB.
Right. So just to clarify that's not the potential that we could be tapping into in order to improve the numbers that you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's who actually participated in the academic year, the percentage of learners. It's not the percentage of learners within the district. That makes sense. So it's not the population. It's the enrollment. It's the learners who enrolled. So hopefully I haven't confused you further with that explanation. But happy to talk about that in more detail outside of the meeting if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Parminder. Sam.
Thanks. So I think we've been talking about tables A and B on page 147 of the pack, which is what tripped me up skimming through as well. So I think Parminder's clarification. I mean, table A is literally just percentages of the total learners accessing this across the combined authority, which is why so we've got the breakdown, which indeed isn't corrected by population size, so we wouldn't necessarily expect it to be the same. It was table B that I struggle with a little more because the percentages add up to a lot more than 100%. But I think I'm right, and Parminder, you might be able to just confirm that all table B is showing us is the not the breakdown of the percentage in our districts as part of the overall whole like table A, but is literally just telling us the breakdown between learners involved on adult skills as opposed to community learning activities, and it adds up to more than 100% for the reason flagged in the note that learners can enrol in more than one qualification across the year. So, for example, Huntingdonshire is just telling us that 86% of the people who access this in total were accessing adult skills, and 20% were accessing community learning, and obviously some people have done both. Is that basically correct?
Yes, yeah, that is correct. Yeah, so it's a percentage in those different types of learning, and as it says in the notes, as you correctly said, it's people can be doing multiple courses.
Thank you. It's good to have that clarified. The other Sam.
Sorry, I've got table questions as well, I'm afraid. Just going back to page 144 under section D, I'm just interested firstly in the difference between learner participation and number of enrollments. I'm assuming that's just where a given learner has enrolled in like several different programs within particular streams. That nod is reassuring. And then down in section E, in terms of the sort of rate of completion that we've got going on, under withdrawal, break-in learning, or transfer to new aim, I'm not sure kind of what the breakdown is within those three categories, or actually what transfer to new aim is referring to. But I'm just kind of interested in what the completion rate is like across all of the programs and how that compares to other authorities and sort of whether there's much we can be doing to improve that, because it looks pretty good from looking at the figures. But I just wonder if you can offer any more insight on that.
Yeah, so in terms of the first point, the answer is yes, that's right. It's a learner can be enrolled on a number of learning aims. So one person could be doing multiple learning aims, and that's the reason why we're going to be careful with adding them up and comparing like for like. But that's just to give so that is the case. In terms of achievements, and there's some more work that we need to do as a group of combined authorities in order to be able to do that level of benchmarking. So there is a data group that's looking at that. So at this point in time, we're only able to say this is the number of people who started and this is the number of people who completed. But the aim is that we will have some completion data and be able to benchmark. At the moment, it's not, because there's a question about the methodology to ensure there's consistency across all of the authorities. And then the other bit is around because of the pandemic years, the ESFA didn't publish the data, the achievement data, in the way that would have been helpful for us. So just to assure members that work is underway, and we definitely want to be able to do that level of benchmarking in terms of completions and achievements. And be able to also segment that data down to provider level, and also down to different learner categories as well, and different course levels. So we're hoping over the next year or so we'll be in a position to be able to do that level of analysis. And I think that's as devolved functions evolve, that's the holy grail, if you like, in terms of achievements and completion that we want to get to. And then a similar piece of work around destinations. So we don't have to report it in this, but certainly it's something that we do report in an annual report, which is for the combined authority, on destinations. And similarly, there it's about ensuring that we have the same methodology across all authorities. At the moment, that shared definition needs some work on it. That makes sense. And similarly with this as well. So yes, it's on our radar, but there's still some more work to do before we can make those fair comparisons.
Thank you very much, Natalie.
Oh, hello, Pravinda. This is my first time at the Skills Committee, but I really want to ask you a question about the environment. 6.1. You said there are no environmental or climate change implications. I'm really interested to hear that you've got a data team, you're looking at your criteria, measurement, impact, and insights into the skills and numbers and the financials. And I'm just wondering what criteria you have used for, environment, to get to that very defined statement that there are no implications at all.
I think that section of the report is about the recommendations. So so the way that we populate that bit of the report is if with relation to the recommendations that are being made. So the recommendations here are about the report, are not about any, and it's about past delivery. It's not about any future activities which would require mitigation or other consideration of environmental impacts. I don't know whether, Rena, you want to just clarify that for me, but that's the way in which we write the reports. So we would consider the recommendations that are being made, and are there any environmental impacts as a result of the recommendation, rather than, because I think your question I think is about the AEB program, I guess, in more general terms, and how do we capture environmental outcomes?
Absolutely, yeah, because you've got insight into a lot of things, and the fact that there are no climate change implications identified. I was just intrigued as to whether that's what the outcome you'd found. It seems that it's very specific to your report, but I was just interested in that because I just found it odd that there were a lot to say about everything else, but on environment it was like there's nothing, no implication at all. And I would have thought that given what you're doing, there may be some implications that you would be looking at.
I think Pominder's right. The report would just, I suppose, specifically on this occasion, it is in reference to do those recommendations. If there was anything more specific, Pominder, I suppose you could address that outside the meeting. But on this occasion, this report is in connection with the specific AEB report.
And just to add to that as well. So in other reports where we're talking about funding policy changes, or we're talking about funding allocations in terms of looking forward in terms of what we're commissioning, we have populated a statement in that section of the committee reports. So an example would be where we are funding carbon literacy courses, for instance. We're funding retrofit qualifications. So in those instances, we do populate a statement that summarizes, what an environmental implication. But because this was a backward-facing report about progress in the academic year, it isn't something that we've reported on. But going back to the earlier comment by Councillor Every around wider impact of learning and the work of the evaluation, given that we're just finalising the specification, it's certainly something that could be included if members would like us to and would support that, something that we could get the independent evaluation to look at and perhaps make some recommendations for things that we could be doing moving forward, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. I think there are some very broad questions there about how we report on a whole range of issues, and it's a completely standard item on all of our reports, the environmental climate change implications, which is sometimes completed and quite often says no environmental or climate change implications. I think probably, certainly at the County Council, we've been reviewing how we do a lot of our analysis in terms of triple bottom line accounting. I think there's probably an interesting discussion to be had at the Combined Authority about how they start reviewing these things in more detail. For those of you not on the County Council, triple bottom line accounting means that we're looking at not only financial impacts of decisions, but also community impacts and environmental impacts. But it has quite a lot of implications for training and how we make all sorts of decisions. I don't think that the Combined Authority have quite got to that space yet, but it's certainly something we could talk about later in the year. Sam, sorry for taking up time.
No, not at all. And on that, Parminder's answer was characteristically helpful. So thank you. But I think Ashley's question is entirely fair, not least given the contrast with Section 5 immediately above it on public health implications. There are the same argument can be made that there are no additional public health implications of us noting the report or sending it off to central government, but there's a summary has been included there. So if Parminder's explanation is the intended coverage, then I suppose just for avoidance of doubt, consistency and application of that across sections might avoid exactly the kind of question that arose. But I think this is a point about summary rather than substance, and I agree it is helpful, and we are indeed bringing in Huntingdonshire, standard sections to pick up some of this as well. But I just wanted to note the reasonableness of the question.
Thank you. I think Fliss wants to comment as well.
Yeah, and Councillor Warren Green, I take your point, and it's something that we will make sure is filled in with completeness and consistency for reports going forward.
Thank you. Lynn.
Just on the impact side of things, I noticed there was mention on page 141 of the skills brokerage service and a course finder tool, and I just wondered whether that had been successful. What was the the impact of that too. For example, how many hits you had with it, that and that sort of thing, and equally also. There was mention of think tanks, and I wondered whether you take into account any sort of impact that comes out of the think tanks as well, because obviously doing all these things is very good, but it'd be nice to know what the impacts are. And finally, the care leavers. How many care leaver bursaries did we manage to do?
Thank you for those questions, Councillor Ayres. I think in terms of the hits on the Find a Course tool, I don't have the numbers to hand, so I'll have to get back to members on that. But what I would say is that having all of the courses having a one-stop shop for all the courses, I have to say is very helpful and useful for learners, but also for businesses as well. Having one place where they can go. But in terms of the number of hits and the conversions, I don't have that data to hand, so we'd have to look at that. The second question was about the think tanks, and for any members who don't know what the think tanks are, it's an annual opportunity for us to hear from and listen to the views of our partners, our delivery partners, our providers, and so we convene 3 groups by provider type. So we have the FE colleges together, the independent training providers, and the adult and community learning providers. We also invite additional scrutiny from the national representative organisations for those provider types. So, for example, the Association of Colleges, the Association for Employment and Learning Providers, and HOLEX. So that they are in attendance as well in those sessions. It's the second time that we've run them. And it's an early opportunity to discuss future funding policy changes and funding flexibilities. So certainly from the first one, and I understand that I think you did attend one of those actually, Councillor Overy, if memory serves me correctly, last year when it was online. And certainly some of the conversations and some of the recommendations from those sessions were taken forward into our funding policy changes, which go out to consultation sort of February, March time. So yes, and similarly in terms of this year, we've had a number of recommendations and suggestions, but also an opportunity for reflection in terms of hearing from our delivery partners in a safe space, so they can give their views in terms of how it's been for them and how we can look to improve things. So I really see those sessions as part of our continuous improvement in terms of how we listen and we co-produce with our delivery partners to try and create the best local skill system that we can. And then in terms of your final question, and I'm sorry I've forgotten it now. You have to remind me.
Care leavers.
Oh yes, yes. So this is a very yeah. So in terms of, just to say for those some of our new members, what this is, just so that you understand the context of it. So across Cambridgeshire, Peterborough, in terms of care leavers aged 19 to 22, the local authorities, Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council, have a duty to ensure that those young people progress into a positive destination. And our area was below the national average. And so we were working in partnership and co-production with the county and city to look at different interventions that we could put in place to improve that. And following conversations with young people, the idea of continuing the bursary was suggested. So they currently get a bursary up to age 18, and then it just tapers off. So as part of our devolved flexibilities, we created a bursary. As long as they continue in further education, they will get the bursary, which is up to £1,200 to support their learning. And so last year was the first year of the bursary, and I'm delighted to report that we had 60 care leavers benefit from this. I haven't had any early figures yet for this year. I will chase those up and send a note round. And to note that we're the only only combined authority who's provided this flexibility. And there's been a lot of interest nationally. And what I've said is just to hold off and to look at some of the impacts and to look at some of the individual learner case studies. But an early look at the data shows an improvement. You can see in the that we're closing the gap in terms of the 19 to 22-year-olds and positive destinations for that group. And I think that the bursary has helped. Obviously, we can't say it's panacea, but certainly it's helped. And then just to add, this year we've got an enhancement to the bursary, and that was at the request of a session that the mayor convened with the care leavers and the care leaver services, where there was a conversation about cost of living, independent living, active travel, and also financial literacy support and healthy eating support for care leavers. And so there's an additional flexibility that's been provided that providers can offer some of those things and design them themselves to meet their context. So care leaver space is I think is a positive story to tell in our area. And if members would like a further report on this in the future, that's certainly something that we can look at.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Faminda, for that excellent answer.
Delighted.
And to Lynn, I'm very glad you asked that. So that was
I am too.
excellent.
I'm too.
Really
And can I
good.
just finally say, where Councillor Warren Green's concerned, in Peterborough we do the same thing about the environment, as well as legal and financial matters. We comment on all our reports about the environment as well.
Thank you. Again, I haven't heard any comments against the recommendations, so we will need a proposer and a seconder. Oh, interestingly, I think not enough movement has been happening on the left-hand side of the room from me. Or maybe it's not that, maybe. Yep, there we go. Thank you, Fliss. So I think we can take these recommendations en bloc. Can I just have a proposer and a seconder? Thank you, Chris and Liz. That's extremely kind. So all those in favour, if you could indicate now. Lynn, are you happy to support this as well? Lynn, are you happy to support this? Lovely. That's great. Thank you. It's fine. I'll be clearer. Any against? I think that was unanimous. So thank you very much. We will move on to the ESOL local planning report, which is Parminder again.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll try and keep this intro brief. I'm just conscious of time. So this report aims to highlight the progress that's been made by the two ESOL local planning partnerships that were set up for the north and the south of the Mayoralty, and for members of the Skills Committee to receive the annual report that has been produced by the partnerships. So I'd like to start by my thanks to the Skills Committee, actually, for taking the leap of faith that you did in approving the formation of the two planning partnerships at the November 2021 committee. And this decision was timely, given the arrival of Ukrainian, Afghan and Hong Kong nationals to our area, and allowed the partnerships to maintain an overview of coordination of ESOL and wider support and addressing some of the capacity building issues that we have of the local ESOL system. We were also able to access additional funding for supporting Hong Kong nationals as well. So while the partnerships are still in their formation stage of development, the annual report highlights some of the achievements and also showcasing some of the case studies of collaborative working and co-production, and also sharing some of the learner voices who've benefited from ESOL programs in our colleges and providers. Better local coordination that will result in improved outcomes for our learners into employment and community integration are very much the objectives that we're seeking to work towards. Members will note that enrolments onto ESOL courses have also remained buoyant in 21-22, with over 1,500 learners benefiting, and a very encouraging improvement as well in completions. Deliverables for the coming year are also highlighted in the paper that have been identified by the partnerships, and I very much welcome members' views on these. The development of the ESOL single point of contact is the headline deliverable for the coming year, and the Skills Committee approved funding for this at the November meeting. And finally, members will note the Cities of Sanctuary scheme and the opportunity for the Combined Authority to consider joining the network. Peterborough City Council and Cambridge City Council are already members. And I'd like to end by congratulating Peterborough City Council and also Peterborough College for completing the accreditation to join the City and Colleges of Sanctuary Network. So happy to take any further questions.
Yeah, thank you for this. I think honestly, this report was really wonderful to read. I'm really pleased to see a lot of the work that's going on in this area. It's so important. I wanted to query the slightly patchy representation of different authorities on the two partnerships and the logic behind it. So I noticed on the Northern Partnership, Peterborough City Council is represented, Fenland District Council is represented, Huntingdonshire doesn't seem to be, unless I've missed something. And then for the South, South Cambs is there, Cambridge City Council doesn't seem to be, East Cambs doesn't seem to be, and then Cambridgeshire County Council isn't listed. Of course, Alex is a councillor there, so perhaps she's a member for that. I'm just wondering if you can clarify what's going on there.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, we've kept the membership pretty fluid. So we haven't, we obviously we went out through the Skills Committee, and I think in the original paper there was a request for membership, and we also went out to officers as well. So, for instance, Huntingdon, we have a regular meeting with Huntingdon officers, and the partnerships have been mentioned and discussed there as well. So I guess it's an open invitation if members feel or other wider stakeholders feel they want to be represented as part of the groups. The membership is pretty open.
Thank you for that. Actually, that's really helpful. I think just Cambridge City Council probably would be interested in that, so I'll have a chat and perhaps get in touch about that.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the membership page, I haven't got a number on it, I'm afraid. At least I have it at the top. Sorry, page 9 of the report. I see in the north we've got a vacant chair and a vacant vice chair, and in fact there's a vacant vice chair in the south as well. And I just wondered what sort of people you were looking for to fill those slots, because I'm not conscious of who we should try to engage to push this forward, as it were.
Yeah, so the terms of reference that have been agreed for the groups is state that it has to be an independent chair, so not a provider, and not a funder. So at the moment I'm sort of stepping in, but for the north, but the idea is that it would be an independent person. We did actually have a recruitment process, and we did go out and we did promote. And we did get a member from Finland put themselves forward, but we hadn't been able to officially induct them. And so, because again, this report is looking backwards, we couldn't say that they were the chair because they didn't chair any of the meetings in 21-22. So we'll be reaching out again to that member who did express an interest in chairing the North. And then once that person is in post, once that person is in the role, we will go through the process for any other positions that we have.
And so, when you say an independent chair, Parminder, do they need to have a particular skill or attitude? What is it you're looking for?
So what I will do is we did have a like a brief for the chair. That was advertised. So what I will do is I'll send that round. Yeah, and as I say, because we would welcome any a friendly nudge to any potential candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parminder. I think if you're looking for councillors to fill those spaces, which I think is probably what we're talking about, I think that there are ways in which we can definitely help you with that. And so if we can pick that up after the meeting and make sure that we are a bit more proactive in encouraging some of our colleagues to step forward, which I don't think would be that difficult, because I think there is a huge amount of support for these programmes and for what's being done with the partnerships. I think it's just a matter of people not having been nudged to think this is something that they should be taking on, and we can all do that. So that's if we can follow that up after the meeting, that would be great. Any other comments on this paper? I think broadly we're all very pleased with the extent of the work being done by the ESOL partnerships and the success of what they're doing. And as you mentioned in your introduction, Perminda, this is a particularly important area of work at the moment, with a very large number of Ukrainian and Hong Kong residents who have arrived and who we need to make sure are well integrated and able to get into work as quickly as possible. So we're very grateful to the work of the partnerships on that. Again, I haven't heard anybody speaking against, so I think we can take the recommendations as printed. I probably need a proposer and a seconder, so if I've got any proposers or seconders, thank you. Thank you, Sam. You can propose this one and I'll second it, if that's okay. And again, all those in favour, so if you're in favour of the recommendations, if you could raise your hand, that would be very helpful. Thank you. That's everyone. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the mid-year performance review of skills, which is Fliss to introduce it. Thank you. Thank you, Perminda.
So it's just to note that all details in the appendix is exempt. So if anyone would like to discuss the appendix in any details, we will need to go into closed session. Yeah.
And just to say, if we do need it, it is completely fine if people want to do that, but then we'll move this item to the end of the agenda, and we'll do that at the end when we go into closed session. But we may well be able to discuss it with just the things that are in the public domain. So we'll see how the discussion goes. Thank you, Fliss.
Apologies. So the purpose of this paper is to try and bring together a performance view for you in one place. So often in the past in the Skills Committee, we've just taken each funding stream in different papers. And the idea of this paper, and the timing wasn't quite right, to be honest, because we haven't managed to get some of the first data releases for this year, is to give you an overview of how the combined authority across the whole of the provision is performing. I think we can make improvements on the paper, and what I would like to do is also bring that together with the finance paper, perhaps once a year as well. So therefore you have not only enrolments, but also financials in the same place as well. So this is, I guess, is the first step on the journey in trying to bring everything together to help you see how we're performing. So you'll see there's varied performance across the different funding streams. We've talked in different points about some of the reasons why. And then we can also see that for the likes of Turning Point, which was a community renewal fund project, how successful that was. And that might actually be worth be bringing back to an informal skills committee so we can learn from what was really successful. But that was a project that was in Fenland and also Peterborough as well. So it's really whether or not you have any comments on any parts of the performance. But I did think perhaps two reports of this type each year would be a good sense check so that you have full oversight of performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Fliss. Any comments on it? Not so far. So I'm going to go first while other people are thinking briefly, which is that I do think it's really helpful to have this information brought together in a report. I'm slightly wondering whether the timing might be better in March and October, so that it comes sort of after at the end of the financial year and before the budget setting. But that may or may not. I mean, we can discuss that on another occasion. But I do think that twice a year, that getting this information twice a year in one place is really helpful for us. Does anybody else have any comments on it? Lynn?
I've just got one comment on the page 180, which is the table B, just because that's not broken down into area. In other words, PCC and whatever, how you normally do it, and because and particularly when it relates to schools, we've been interested to know which area that relates to. So just a bit more data, please. Thank you.
I can get that information to you. We have that. It's just quite an unwieldy spreadsheet, but yeah, more than happy to share.
So I don't see any other comments or questions on the report, but we are very pleased to have it. Thank you very much. I think this is probably just for noting, yes, so we don't need to take a report on that, but thank you very much, Fliss. That's very helpful. I'm sure it's helpful for you to have it as well as for us. So that's very useful. The next one is the Skills and Labour Market Insight Report, and that is with Laura and Rachel. And I've seen Laura online and Rachel, both online. Wonderful. So am I handing over to Lorna or to Rachel first? Laura.
To me, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And it is still morning, isn't it? Morning, members. Just introducing agenda item 3.4, which is our skills and labour market report. And within this, you're just being asked to note and comment the information, which has been designed to help inform future decision making. And if you could also suggest any further insights for future reports, I think that would be helpful. Report's been designed and produced following a request for members for more consistent headline data. The report contains quite a wide set of indicators, which allows for data to be presented both to Skills Committee and also to Business Board. And the timescales of reporting will coincide with data releases, which will enable us to make better decisions. Core indicators in the report sit around economy, labour market, business conditions and performance, and skills supply. And the report's been produced by Cambridgeshire Insights and Metro Dynamics. And as you've just heard, Rachel is on this call from Cambridgeshire Insights, so she'll be able to highlight key elements of the report and also take any questions. Rachel, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I am conscious of time, but for the purpose of today, I just wanted to highlight a few of those kind of key headline points, particularly for this committee on the overall labour market and skills supply. You'll see in 2021 some of that kind of early census data. The total population is now sitting just under 900,000, of which positively 2/3 were of that kind of working age. Rural districts have seen an increase in older population, and Cambridge City is that younger population. And as we start to get a bit more of that detail, we'll start to unpick that in terms of the labour market for you. As we look to potential recession, the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough area has shown strengths in its labour market, and I think that's a key thing to bring out. For instance, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has a larger proportion of population available to work than the England average, and although the proportion of the population economically inactive increased during the pandemic, there has been a noticeable decrease in the last year. Similarly, along that line, vacancies remain high across all sectors, but have fallen over the last year. So we are seeing what we kind of call that recovery. But we do continue, and you will have seen in the data, we do continue to see differences of those headlines across the districts, particularly in Fenland and Peterborough. We are seeing lower levels of economic inactivity, higher levels of claimants, and lower levels of wages compared to the other districts. One final point on me, and that's what Laura picked up on that kind of developing this on the basis of members' requests last year. It's still in development. You'll see that there are gaps as we await data availability releases. We didn't want to put in their old data, which we know will be out of date now. We're using survey-based data at the moment, which is good, but as much as possible, we want to move to some of that census changes. And currently, given the timelines for this particular report, there isn't that in a lot of this, and that will be important local insight information for us. So next time we will bring some of that more detailed information on labour market and skills supply
multivariate data that we've seen from the census, which we're expecting in the spring, and we'll incorporate that along with any other questions or changes and recommendations members have today.
Thank you very much, Laura and Rachel. Comments? Okay, I'm going to start with a couple because no one else has. But okay, Lynn, go first.
I was just listening to, I think, and heard that there are more people claiming benefits, I'm assuming from that, and that there are lower wages. Bearing in mind we're in a cost of living crisis, that sort of worried me, and I just wondered whether and whether I'm looking at the right. There must be one of these particular graphs that tells me what's going on in Peterborough and Fenland and East Cambs as well, where the wages are low. Have they actually gone down as opposed to going up, which everybody at the moment is sort of striking for? So wasn't quite sure which period this related to as well, just to make sure what's included.
Yes, I can take that one. Unfortunately, it's a long document, but I think page apologies, I don't have the pack that members have, but I'm looking at page 28, which says under the labour market section of the annex, workplace and residential wages, and that looks back over the last 10 years. And we have been seeing an increase in wages, but Fenland and Peterborough, you'll notice from those charts, sit at the lower end when compared to other districts.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for that. A couple of questions from me and or comments. So first of all, comment at the beginning is that I think this is a really, really helpful report, and something that the combined authority very much needs. Actually, all of our organisations probably need it too. So it's really helpful from that point of view. I think I haven't given it quite sufficient reading yet, and I would like to go in and do some more. But there are a couple of things that I might ask a couple of questions on in a minute. I'm somewhat aware that this is a report that's coming to the Skills Committee for us to do a skills view on, but that actually looking at that overall economic picture is something that the Combined Authority needs to do very thoughtfully, and we need to make sure that this is not just coming to us, but coming to the right places across the rest of the organisation and within our organisations, because it's got a lot of very important data in it. Which brings me to the two bits that I was going to ask questions about. The first of which is the graph on our pack, page 190, which I think is report pack. Oh, can't see which page it is of the report pack. It's quite near the beginning. Might be about 4 or 3. Which is a graph of the economy size and growth, total GDP in CPCA, and shows a very significant drop across the period of the pandemic. And there's a little note there that says the CPCA's economy barely grew between 2018 and 2019, which is, and then shortly after that, there's another graph showing the comparison. I know it's a productivity graph, so we'll look at that in a second. But it would be really helpful on that first graph on the economy size and growth to look at the comparison between the CPCA area and the region and the UK, because my understanding from some other bits of information was that actually, although there had been a very significant impact on the on UK growth, actually Cambridgeshire and Peterborough hadn't done as badly as some other areas. And if that is the case, it would be really helpful if that would to be shown here. We will obviously need to be talking to government about the expectations of growth that there are on the CPCA and how those map against things like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, which are clearly having a significant impact on the economy. So that's a discussion to be had, but having that an extra few lines on that graph, I think, would be really helpful. The next one was the productivity one, which is a really interesting comparison between Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and UK productivity, which shows UK productivity looking pretty good for that period, slightly to my surprise. So that's a really interesting thing to see. And the difference between Cambridgeshire productivity and UK productivity on that graph is something that I'm very curious about. And I'm also interested in the kind of the contrast between Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So I don't know whether, I mean, to a certain extent, I'm not sure whether it's the role of this committee to be asking questions about overall productivity, but it certainly needs to be done somewhere. And I don't know whether you've got any explanation for why the productivity in Cambridgeshire has done less well since 2017 or 2016 than in Peterborough.
Thank you, Chair, and appreciate the comments at the beginning about the usefulness of this pack, and to pick up on yours and members' comments around the kind of link with the cost of living, and that is something that we're looking at more broadly as the way these things happen, particularly in pace. This report was produced before a lot of the cost of living work we've been doing has been able to come forward. On the first graph, I've taken notes, and we can certainly take that away and make that improvement. Unfortunately, on the productivity one, this is where we bring Metro Dynamics in. So I don't have a comment for you, but I can certainly take that away and ask for them to provide a bit more information around what's going on and potentially reasons behind that.
Thank you. That would be really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. I don't see any other questions on this. And again, I think this is probably to note, so we don't need to take a vote on it. But thank you very much, Rachel. Do please take on board our grateful thanks for this document, which I think is really useful and really important, and pass that on to anybody else who needs it, because it is a really, really useful document. Thank you, everybody. The next item is the Finance and Performance Report, which is Bruna.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you, Chair. Nice to meet you all. I hope you can hear me all.
Thank you. We can hear you well.
Yes.
Thank you, Bruna.
So I'm now your new finance manager, so I will be attending this meeting and provide information for you as possible. So this report shows the performance of the combined authority up to the end of November, to the October 2022. You can see income is at the moment for £12,147,000. These added to activity that we were expecting to receive imminently is adding another 2.2 million to make it 12.4 million. Sorry, 14.4 million. And in relation to cost, you can see the overall cost is at the moment 8.4 million plus lots of activity that they need to go and move forward for the rest of the year. Lots of the activities are, of course, based on timing discrepancy compared with what we have originally planned. Some of it is based with expenses that need to still be claimed. Also, as you know, the performance of the different projects that we have spoken to date will affect the financial position. And so there is an effect on that, on the various things we have spoken, like skill bootcamp, everything about the health and care sector that we have spoken about it in the past, and the AV project program. That's pretty much a very short summary. Please do ask any question.
Thank you very much, Bruna, and welcome. It's very good to have a new finance manager. Thank you. Sam. Sorry, Bruna, Sam is trying to make a microphone work.
It's fine, don't worry.
It keeps happening to me.
Mine is still working. I might have to. Do you want to shout, Sam?
Turn yours off.
We seem to have problems with all of them.
It's fine, don't worry. You.
I'm going to point this one to Sam, and then you can shout. Hang on a minute. No.
Yeah, I can try. Can you hear me? If I shout?
Yes, I can.
Great. Sorry, this is not ideal, but never mind. I was just wondering on the dashboard performance report about the two
Yes.
projects highlighted as having red RAG status, and whether you could just let us know what's going on with those.
I can. Do you want me
Sorry,
to-
can you repeat the question? I couldn't really hear you. I heard the part about the dashboard report, but not much more.
So Bruna, it's asking on the performance. Yeah, so it's asking for the performance dashboard, the two projects which are shown as red in the RAG status. Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, yes, but I can provide information myself if needed.
Okay.
Please do answer, please. If you're sure that you are much more comprehensive, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the University of Peterborough Phase 2, forgive me, I don't remember if you were at the last skills committee. It's when we went into exempt session. This is all about the current partners, and so we're currently seeking, we're working on a solution to that, so hence why that's red. And then the Health and Care Sector Work Academy, again, we received reports here at the last skills committee. We will not be able to deliver, perform the whole contract, and so therefore that's now flagged as red.
Thank you very much, Fliss. Any further questions on the finance report? I just had a comment to make, which was that this section does flag up quite clearly the concerns that there are about the skills boot camps wave 3, which we've discussed in some detail earlier in this meeting. But I think it's important for us as a committee to recognise that kind of we're aware of those problems. And I did actually have a quick question about the finance on that, which is just to ask whether, if that money is unspent, is the expectation that it goes back to government? And Fliss is nodding, so that is the case.
Yeah, and just to confirm, depends what wave it's on, but wave 3, we're given grant funding, and so therefore it will be returned. Yeah.
So that's disappointing, but we have discussed to a certain extent what the reasons for that are. And I do think it's probably quite important for us to continue to say to government that we have concerns about this way of trying to increase skills, because we are finding these difficult to deliver. Any other comments on this report? And I'm just checking whether it's for noting. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bruna.
Thank you very much.
Very good to meet you.
Nice to meet you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, I think, the alignment of procurement, which is Melissa.
Hi, thanks again. So the paper, so 3.6, the alignment of procurement and contracting. Really, we wanted to put this paper in just to highlight and show to members. So the paper is for noting, and it's really to show to members that as a skills team and wider skills team, we are actively continuing to improve our ways of working to benefit the delivery of the region, and part of that includes the way that we procure provision for all of our skills provision. So one of the things that we've spoken about at length, I think, within the team, is that we do have a number of training providers that deliver across multiple funding streams for us. So across AEB, across skills boot camps, careers, multiply. And previously, where we've looked to procure and needed to competitively procure for training providers, we've done that sort of on a funding stream basis separately and through separate tendering opportunities. So that then requires separate marketing engagement activity. It requires bidders who want to look at delivering in the region to complete due diligence each time they want to bid in. And so what we're looking to do and what we are doing currently is developing a dynamic purchasing system, or otherwise known as a DPS. And I think just to note from that, there are, before I go on to the DPS, there are some funding streams where we know roughly when we will need to procure and when contracts will be sort of coming to an end and new funding will be coming in. Then, as we all know, there are other sort of funding streams or new or additional funding that we can't always plan to ahead for. So yeah, where we know when and what we want to look at procuring, we're working much closely together as a wider skills team to plan that out. So with the dynamic purchasing system, the purpose of developing this system would be for all skills provision that we are looking to procure out at any time. It allows a dynamic purchasing system will allow training providers to register interest in the DPS at regular intervals. So we are probably looking to set up monthly intervals where interested providers can register to the DPS. They will have to pass initial due diligence in order to be listed onto the DPS, but it will just allow them to have a bank of training providers on our procurement system already, and at any time we want to look at issuing competitive procurement, those providers who have already passed the initial due diligence, bit of a mouthful, will automatically receive a notification of the opportunities coming up that we're looking to procure for. Just for your awareness, if a provider wanted to register on the DPS and they failed the due diligence, they can look at reapplying each time the next round of applications of interest are open. What the dynamic purchasing system will also enable is a more efficient journey for training providers that do want to bid to deliver provision for the region, and it will create a more joined up approach internally. So as I said before, looking at timelines of procurement, as well as the efficiency and consistency of the amount of paperwork that is needed to develop per procurement, that will be much more aligned and more efficient as well. So yeah, really it was just an overview of processes that we're undertaking internally to make things much more efficient, and something that we wanted to highlight to members. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed. Oh, mine is back on. Sorry, all the microphones went, but this one now seems to be working again, and it may be that others do. I don't think we have any questions on this paper. I think we did have a very brief discussion again about this. It came up as part of the skills boot camps conversation. My own personal view is that this is really helpful, and thank you very much to the skills team for getting on with this and taking this very sensible step to try and enable us to engage more smoothly and easily with providers, because that's clearly the thing that needs to happen in order to be able to allow us to deliver more of this provision more quickly and more efficiently. And again, I've got various nods and no further questions. So thank you very much, Melissa, for that. And that item is noted. We will now move on to what I think is our final item on the agenda, which is the Skills Committee Agenda Plan. And I think that's nothing to add on the agenda plan. Any further comments from anybody? Not that I see. Thank you all very much for attending today, for what I think has been a good and useful meeting. And again, welcome to Natalie. It's been great to have you with us. I am really hoping that the next time we meet, it'll be for an informal meeting at Peterborough to go and look around Peterborough University, but it may be that we will not manage to do that before March, in which case I will see you all in March. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and Happy New Year again. Bye.